you share just all your different passions. You're not afraid to just be you. And if it doesn't fit in a perfect box of how society wants to categorize people, whether that's a personality test or having a career define who you are, you just don't allow that. Welcome to the Atlanta Real Estate Podcast. This is the show where we explore the stories behind the people and personalities that make up Atlanta real estate. We interview top producing agents, mortgage lenders, builders, contractors, investors, and everyone in between to share their secrets of success and meet the key players that drive the Atlanta housing market. I'm your host, Mike Lacey. I'm a top producing real estate agent with Sotheby's International Realty, in addition to being a real estate investor in the Atlanta area. In today's episode, we are going to explore the story of Octavius Terry. Octavius is a fellow real estate agent with me at Sotheby's as well, and he is one of the most talented people I've ever met through so many different arenas, but you would never know upon first meeting him. He is humble, he's soft-spoken, but at the same time, he has seen incredible success in running track, in high-end fashion, in real estate, and probably 8 other things that I don't even know about. So in today's episode, we are going to learn a lot more about his story and the secrets of his success. So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Thank
Octavius.
you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Fun. Yeah.
I'm really excited because we know each other,
Yes.
but I don't know the whole story.
Yes. We're going to get to it today.
We're going to get to it today.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured we kind of go through your story chronologically, maybe starting with high school, college, and running track.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I might have to brag for you, but you were damn near an Olympic level athlete.
Yeah. I was, interesting enough, born and raised in Atlanta. Chronologically, I'm a Scorpio. I was born November 2nd. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was actually on 2 United States teams, which was equivalent to making the Olympic team. The same parameters, just not an Olympic year. And funny enough, this little kid born and raised in the inner city of Atlanta, I was ranked 7th in the world at 19, actually, in my event.
Wow.
Yeah.
For 19-year-olds or just in the world?
In the world.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And your event was hurdles?
400 hurdles. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What got you into hurdles?
Okay, so it's part of kind of my story. I'm 6'3", and I've been 6'3" since I was 12 years old.
Wow.
That didn't speak to my athletic pursuits at all. I was more of a brainiac kid that was, and we'll probably get into that because what I thought was being a hummingbird as a kid has expanded in more ways than one. So I'm always, like my mom said, I was always a bored kid. So she tried to keep me challenged in everything, right? So early on, everybody said that I am a basketball player for some reason. I said, okay, let me figure this out. This is way before the internet, people. And I mean, only thing I had, cause I actually just turned 50 this past November. So when I was growing up, there was this thing on the walls called an encyclopedia. So anything you really wanted to learn, you had to find somebody, especially me being in the inner city of Atlanta, you had to find somebody who had an encyclopedia. Thank you to Mr. Montgomery, who was my neighbor, who was retired, and he would let us come and look. So that's the only way you found out information. So when people started to put the athletic pursuit on me because I was tall, but I was super skinny, that I'm a basketball player, I said, well, maybe I should explore that. So the way that I explored it, I found out how to play basketball by reading a book. So I would hide in the library and read a book about all the terms and all that kind of stuff, and end up trying to use that with my peers. And then I played for a little while, but I hated it. But I was like, everybody expected me to do athletics, but I was actually in the talented and gifted program when I was in elementary school, right? So that is why I was a book person. But for some reason, I wanted to have an athletic pursuit in something. So I said, maybe I'll try track and field out. My mother's maiden name, affectionately, his name is Swift. So in my head, I'm like, I must be fast. My mom's maiden name is Swift. So I said, let me try track. And I tried track later on in life. Like I was in the marching band and that kind of thing. And then sports came around in the 10th grade. And I said, I'll play basketball. Hated it. I want an individual sport so I can really control my destiny and really focus in on one thing. So I tried track, but then nobody at the track team would run hurdles because the hurdles at the time were made out of these metal posts at the bottom, and if you hit them, you're going to either hit the ground or you're going to get your legs cut and everything like that. But for me, which is transferable now. When anytime as anybody's ever told me that you'll never be able to do that, that's kind of when I zone in, and my mental kicks in with that. So I said, well, nobody else wants to do it. And everybody says that I can't do it, so I'm going to do it. So I zoned in on the hurdles, and then again, here I am just doing my research, and I watched tapes of Edwin Moses, and I started to practice the way I thought it would be, and people were shocked that I had taken on the hurdles because at the time I was slow, even though it was swift, I was slow, right? But then just again, everything that I do use today is just a metaphor for that. Just kind of stay in your own lane and continue to practice, even in the quiet time, because there's a lot of people that don't know how much research and how much practice you're doing on the backside of that. But every time I left the track, I was at home watching videotapes of the Olympics and watching people count steps and everything like that. And lo and behold, I went from nobody knowing who I was in the 10th grade, and I concentrated on the hurdles and ended up going to a summer track club. But my senior year, the year that I really wanted to get a scholarship, but at that point, most of the major colleges had already selected their student athletes early on because they had this progression of greatness, right? But for me, I went from nobody knowing me in the 10th grade. My senior year, I was ranked third in the United States in high school in my event. But again, track is it's a spring sport. So imagine I'm a senior. Now I'm third in the United States in March and April, and nobody's looking for me, but my times are speaking. So that's kind of what got me. I don't know if I probably went a little further than that, but that's what got me in track. Just again, the pursuit of wanting to be an athlete, but also someone saying that I wouldn't be able to do it, which has kind of been my mantra for life, like zoning in into that piece and then becoming a perfectionist at it.
That's so cool. So I feel like there's a couple things that really probably drove that, it sounds like. One was just like the motivation, right?
Yes.
Someone telling you can't do this, and you're like, well, I can't wait to prove you wrong.
Yes.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that. I didn't realize, though, that you were such a bookworm and such a study person. That's how I am. I like to digest the information and learn from other people that have done it before me. And I would think for track, I'm just surprised that it had that much of an impact. What were some of the things that you'd be learning in sort of that off time that you mentioned?
About the track?
Yeah.
Well, especially for the hurdles, just, what is it that is making people capable to actually get over the hurdles and that kind of thing? And I will say that the instant gratification of getting an actual medal for your success was validation for me, which I love to see. Like any other sport, like basketball, I wasn't getting that, but the fact that I could run at a track meet and then I would actually bring home a medal so I could see it was a tangible piece of information that told me that I was doing the right thing and being great at what I was doing. But running in itself is proper placement. But also, what I also say is there's also some natural talent in there where I remember being like 7th in the world, and they sent me out to the training camp in San Diego to study my steps and everything like that. So I didn't know what I was doing, but inherently, just by practice and zoning in on what I knew how to do, it just became subconscious out of body experience that I didn't know all the statistics that they were putting up there. So for me, the research is what got me there. And it was the talent after that. It's just my muscle memory after that came and it kicked in.
That makes sense. One thing I've always found pretty fascinating about track and running is that the difference between first and 10th place at the Olympics or some really high level event for the 400-meter hurdles, what is it, like a couple seconds, a second?
Oh no, hundredths of a second sometimes.
Hundredths of a second.
Yeah, because the 400 hurdles ended up being at my level, it becomes a sprint. So it literally, I made the 1995 World Championship team by 200ths of a second, I think.
Oh my God.
Same scenario in 97 as well. Right at the end of the line. I went to Georgia Tech, so I'm a 3-time national champion there, but my first national championship in the 400 hurdles that I won, I actually fell at the finish line because I won by like 100th of a second. So it's that tough. And you think about it, and again, everything that I talk about today is how I've been able to have these transferable skills because you practice for 4 years for a race that's under a minute, right? And hopes to get only the top three to actually make a team. And then if you don't make it, then you got to wait another 4 years. It's the most grueling um, type of, like, I would say, meditation. It's the most grueling meditation with results that are not promised, you know? You just hope that on that day, everything just is in alignment. The weather, the day that you go to sleep. I mean, like, I remember the anxiety of being able to go to the Olympic trials, and we have, rounds of races to get there. To get, you have a preliminary, and then you have a semifinal, and then you have a quarterfinal, and then you have the final race. So you're racing that race that you would normally race one time on the weekend, like 4 times over a weekend. So you hope that by the time you get in that final race, that you have prepared yourself enough that you're not going to be tired, but you're not only going to be tired, but you've got to run the fastest race of your life, sometimes your personal best, or you're going to have to wait another 4 years. So I said, if I can do that, I can do anything as far as, stress and anxiety.
I bet. I can imagine. I mean, that's so much buildup for just one little moment where, like you said, there's so many factors at play. The weather, how you slept that night. I mean, what you ate the past 24 hours. Any other lessons that you can pull out? Because I think one of the things people will realize as they hear your story is that you've found really, really high levels of success in seemingly unrelated areas. Mm-hmm. And one thing I want to try to unpack throughout that is, like, is there a fundamental skill set or things that you learned along the way that showed up in each of those arenas? Any, as far as track goes, that you would point out?
So good. So, at 50, what I wanted to do, people said, you should write a book. So I've started to create the architecture for a book called Learning How to Finish, right? Mm. So track has been such a metaphor in even real estate right now, even fashion design. Like the fact I got into fashion design at 36 and everybody said, how are you going to be a suit maker, Me running the hurdles was a metaphor, but also like knowing that, if you don't do what you need to do and you don't make that race, you've got to wait 4 years, right? So what I found to be the common thread that people ask me, like, how do you do it? I realize that most people don't know how to finish. They don't. So you've got to learn how to finish, right? So I say that to say that the 400 hurdle race, nobody stops in the middle of a 400 race. No matter if you're dead last or you're first, you always see races unless especially at that level, unless you get hurt or you fall. Mm-hmm. Whether you come in first or last, you still have to finish, right? What I find with most people who decide to jump into other arenas or other careers is that they don't know how not to stop, because what they see in themselves is like, they'll get halfway in between and they have these visions of grandeur of like, what this is supposed to look like. Like for me, for a fashion designer, when I first got in, when I get in here, my suits are going to be like they were at Neiman Marcus and that kind of thing. But once you get in the middle of that, most people say, gosh, it doesn't look like that. Maybe it'll never look like that. I'll stop trying to do that, right? So I've learned that because, it is in the work, it is in the research after that, but you have to finish it. Even if it doesn't look like it's supposed to be in Neiman Marcus when you first start, you've got to learn why not, right? And then that allows you to go back in and do the research and like perfect it. In those quiet times, keep perfecting. The other thing lesson that I learned with just running track is that I ran the 400 hurdles, so there's 10 barriers, right? So another thing that most people do is they get anxiety about the finish line or where they need to go, right? As opposed to chopping it up like I used to do in 10 barriers. So you take the bigger goal and you chop it up into smaller goals. And by the time you get to the 10th hurdle, in my mind, by the time I got to the 10th hurdle, I can't believe I just ran 400 hurdles, because I'm taking, each one is a different section. Every section is a special section. Like the first part is a curve. The second part is kind of a curve and a straightaway. The next two is like a straightaway. Same thing with any career, any kind of life. Like, you want to get to the finish line, but some of the first part is just kind of a curve, and then the next part is like a straightaway and that kind of thing, right? But then the third thing about learning how to finish is that you really have to stay in your own lane and run your own race, right? So you cannot be one of these people that like on Instagram or social media comparing yourself because comparison kills, right? You're the only one at your height that had a different breakfast and that kind of thing, that you just have to concentrate on being the best that you can, and whether you're in lane 1 or lane 8, and don't even worry about the outside. You're just worried about getting past those little barriers and making it to the finish line. Once you get to the finish line, then you evaluate. Did I do good? Do I need to do better? Do I need to have more practice? Do I need to get more rest? But you just don't stop. You learn how to finish. And I think that has been a transferable skill that I learned early on from my coach at Georgia Tech, that I felt that just that metaphor has helped me even become the fashion designer that I am now, the real estate, professional that I am now. I tell people now that I'm getting ready to turn 51. If I decide to fly planes next year, that might be on the goal list, and I'll use those same little techniques that I've learned early on, or those mantras that I've learned in this kind of book that I'm writing, learning how to finish.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's funny because it's easy to say, right? You're just like, well, I did this, this, and this, and people hear that like, I can do that too. But I think it's hard, right? It's hard to live that and to do it and to have the consistency. And two things that come to mind for me is, one, you had focus, right? You were focused on your next step, your next hurdle, your race, your progress, where people can get distracted so easily. And the second is delayed gratification, which is funny because you mentioned you really like the instant gratification.
Well, back there with the medals, because by the time you get to that level, there are the medals. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. You're thinking about, okay, I got 4 more years to train for the Olympics. Yeah. So, that's what, 1,400 days of putting in the work, day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, wake up, eat, train, sleep, over and over and over again for that one chance to make the Olympic team. You're delaying gratification 4 years. And when I think about the people that are struggling to finish, you talk about finishing, I would guess it's because they're caught up with the next best thing and the shiny new object. And, well, I got really excited about real estate investing or crypto or whatever it is. And I tried it for a little bit, but I didn't get the success right away. And so I lost interest. Yes. And whether they have the self-awareness to realize that or not, that's basically what's happening. So I think those are really good lessons that it sounds like you've learned, is the focus, the delayed gratification. This is the goal that I have, and I know what I need to do. And then you actually went and did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I continue to do that on a daily basis. Like you said, it's not always easy, but I know, Will Smith has his book out, and I read it and I listened to it on Audible. But what he said was, his metaphor was that his father made him, he and his brother build a brick wall brick by brick, right? And the thing about it was, when he first started, he's like, oh, like, how are we gonna cover this? Is just too much. But he learned that if you get up next morning, no matter how bad it is, if you decide to just lay another brick the next day, the wall will be built, right? And so I say the same thing. Like, learning how to finish is not every day is glamorous. There are some things that are. And I don't even get into the thing about mistakes. I call those things redirections. There's some redirections that happen that make you change your research trajectory. And then you learn from that and you get better. You get better. There's some things that I've done where I thought I would not be able to do it. And I always say this little prayer. I say, God, make me so desperate that I am forced to do the things that I didn't want to do. And when you say that, on the other side is so much success. And you're like, gosh, it took for me to really have my back against the wall to really push myself to do this. I wish I would have done this a long time ago. Like, look what I've learned that I can keep doing elsewhere, And so that's why when I talk about learning how to finish, that's part of it. You've got to listen to the cues, and the thing that is the hardest, push yourself through a breakthrough. Like, my family always knows that anytime they ask me anything, I'll say, we'll figure it out, right? Because I also believe in, you may be creating new math. Like, that's why you can't even compare. Like, you're using your best resources to have the same outcome, and your outcome may be better than anybody else could have imagined, right? But you have to push yourself to a breakthrough. Like when I get frustrated about something, I might walk away from it a little bit, but it will, and my family knows, my fiance knows, that is my another one of my mantras. I will dig down deep until I figure that out, and I won't stop. But when I figure it out, that is so much joy in that, because what you learn from whatever that small thing is, and I always talk about transferable skills. You can apply what you just learned to real estate. You can apply what you learned to fashion design. It's just so much that I look for, and I usually seek out those difficult times because I'm like, there's something in there, and maybe that's just my age at this point, my maturity, or the experiences that I've had. Because all of my worst times have created shortcuts to what I thought was, I was not destined for it, because I was on this path and this is how it's going to happen. And those mistakes that I dug in actually got me further. And that's a whole nother story. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so good. It's just the fall down 6 times, get up 7, right?
Yeah.
One of my old mentors used to always say that you have to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough.
Yeah,
so in those moments where you're having failure or whatever you want to call it, and you feel like the world is ending and I suck and all that doubt starts coming in, it's just, no, you're actually on the path of growth and finding these shortcuts, but you have to kind of stumble your way through it.
Yeah, you're this close when that's happening. So it's a mindset. When it's the toughest, you just have to say, it's tough because I'm that close. That's all you got to say.
I love that. Love that. So let's transition to the next phase then. Okay. So you ran track in college, and then working life comes, career, adult, making money.
Yeah.
What was that transition like?
Well, it was kind of a mix because, the bank actually took an interest in me when I was training for the 96 Olympics, actually, where they allowed me to come in super early, like at 7 a.m. So, because our practices started at 3:30. And I was training with the then 96 Olympic gold medalist in my event, Derek Atkins, who won the Olympics.
That was in Atlanta, right?
In Atlanta.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so I was training with the guy who actually won. So that for me was just being able to spar with some of the best in the world that actually went to Georgia Tech. I was also training with Angelo Taylor, who was a 5-time Olympic gold medalist, who was younger than me, who I recruited there. So I would literally be at work, but then I got to go run the Olympics every single day with these guys. So I went, and I knew that I needed to have those sparring partners. And, this guy, I just knew that it was the right thing to do. I went to my boss, and my boss created this thing where I would come in early at 7:30 and leave at 3:30. Because at the time I was working in commercial banking, and I was just doing spreadsheets. And I have to be very honest, back then, I know I was working for the bank, but half the stuff I was putting in there, I was like, I didn't care. I was just like, at least I was getting paid to use my my talent of spreadsheets and just do it. And then they allowed me to go and train with them at 3:30. So they sent this whole camera crew down, and I was just looking at it the other day and looking at this young guy, which was myself, who was only like 23, talk these things. And I'm like, gosh, if people really knew, I was so scared at that point. But anyway, I say all to say that after I didn't make the Olympic team. I made the team before, I made the team after. Didn't make the Olympic team because I had, talk about being, race ready at the time. I actually had a hairline fracture in my big toe, and it was my senior year at Georgia Tech. I just knew I'm graduating from Georgia Tech. I'm gonna make the Olympic team, but it didn't happen. And so I ended up working at the Olympic Village in the housing as a housing manager. And then here I go. I had to see all these people I ran against and getting them checked in and stuff like that. But then the next year I made the team in Sweden. But camera crew came down, and my boss was like, you've got the eyes of the entire First Union company, because they were like, oh, we got this guy in Atlanta that's training Olympics. It was like, Octavius, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I was the first person to graduate from college. And I said to myself, this is my opportunity to do what my family has always wanted me to do, to try to figure out what I could do to start to be that pioneer that creates generational wealth for our entire family. So I said, well, I would like to do investments for athletes and entertainers. So I just kind of put that out there. And he said, okay, let's make that happen. So right after the Olympics, because he said, running may not always be there. So let's while you have this opportunity, you have the eyes of the company. Let's get you in these places. So I got into this program where I ended up going to Charlotte for 9 months back and forth, and I got all my official training like lending. I got my Series 6 and Series 7. I got my insurance license. I was able to do mutual funds, and so we had a 9 month program. We would go up there, and then we would come back, and then after the 9 month program, they placed us in a branch as a financial specialist. So I got placed in a branch, and so I was coming from the corporate area down into the branch, and here I am again, this person that is always overachieving, because I'm like, okay, I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, who's the top producing lender? Who's that? What are those numbers? Okay, this is what I got to do. So I've always looked at who that was, and always envisioned my face there, that picture there. I still do the same thing. Shout out to Atlanta Fine Home Sotheby International Realty, but that top producer card with all the guys on there, I have a folder on there that I look at every morning with the pictures, and I always like imagine my picture being on there, like, as that. So
can we stop and dive into this real quick? We're going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but first I want to say that I totally relate to you. Yeah. I've also been fortunate to have a good amount of success in random things. Yeah. Chess, debate.
Okay.
All kinds of different stuff. Okay. Yeah. So, and I'm a student of success. I like to learn. And I think visualizing yourself as successful is such an important piece of it. And when you're starting something new, what better way to improve than to see who's at the top of the game, aspire to be with them, learn what they're doing, emulate what's working, and then also add your own twist. Now, I say all that to say, for anyone that doesn't know, the office that we're in has like some of the most incredibly, unbelievably successful real estate agents in Atlanta and probably the country. Yes. I mean, there are people, Chase Mizell last year, I think he did 100 deals, maybe a little bit short of that, with an average price point of like over $1 million. Yeah. He's the only agent. He's got like one, maybe two assistants. I'm not sure. Yeah. He runs an incredible business that is hard to even fathom from the outside. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many incredible agents that have been doing this a long time. And even for someone like me, who I feel like I'm starting to get my career going and, wanting to be like these people, I even have some self-doubt being transparent that I'm like, man, can I ever get on that level? Share a little bit more, like, let's dive deeper into your thoughts there on that, because those are big goals to say that, you'll be with those names at some point.
Yeah. So, I just celebrated my first year with them about a month ago. So I decided that, again, I'm a researcher. So everything I have a binder. And I say year one with Sotheby's, and I took everything, like all our meetings, all that, I have it on the inside. And in the binding side, I have the year. But on the front, I take that piece with all the top producers and who they are. So I have one from last year. Started the second year, so I have the second folder in there. So every morning I'm looking at that as I write my affirmations, and I still envision my round picture there, and that kind of thing. But then, like you said, I think visualization and synchronicity is what I'm learning too, that it is possible. So everything that I've done has been geared toward doing that, and it's just been like almost like a blink moment. It's almost like one of those things where you get in the car, when I leave here and I put the directions on, I'm going home, but my mind is able to. I can call my mom. I can look at all these other things. I can start thinking about these, and I'm like, my body's on autopilot, right? And I think that visualization has also helped me with everything that I've done. So I've never said that, like, I think about my track pursuits. Even though I didn't make an Olympic team, it is very rare that someone can do the same thing that I did 3 times in a row. Like, I made the 95 World Championship team, which is the same thing. You've got to be top 3 to go and make it to the United States. I did it. And then I had my self-doubt. Can I do it for the Olympics? Didn't do it for the Olympics because I got hurt. So now that I got hurt, I'm like, dang, World Championships are coming back up again. Can I prove everybody wrong and make that team? Because maybe they wrote me off. 97 made that team again with the same thing. Re-raced everybody. And then I'm like, gosh, I wish my toe wasn't messed up. I could have been at the 96 Olympics, right? But everything that I've done has been visualization. I remember going to fashion design school at 36, saying, after the banking crisis when I left, you know, I want to be the best suit maker in the world as an American designer, and also a minority designer. And so I put that out there and I visualized that. Of course, everybody thought I was crazy. My parents stopped thinking I'm crazy because they've seen some magical things that have happened to me just because I have done that. But the people who didn't know me, they didn't realize it because I remember when I said I was going to do that, I had never touched a sewing machine in my entire life. So I remember going to Joann's Fabrics, shout out to Joann's Fabrics, and I took this class where I learned how to sew a pillow. And I took a picture, visualization. I took a picture, and I still have the same pillow. I took a picture of me threading it with my big hands, threading that machine and laying my first stitch. And that was March 5th, 2010. So it's only been 13 years. Cut to, I ended up going to design school out there that had a shortened program because I already had a degree. And like I said, I'm always a sponge. I don't care demographic, age, or anything like that. I knew that I was going to be going to the fashion design school at the tender age of 36, I think it was. And I was going to be going in there with kids that were coming out of high school for 19. But what I took that as an opportunity was to learn new technologies, because when I was in school, there was no internet, new technology, social media. So they got some of my maturity rubbed off on them, and they also guided me, and some of us are still friends to this day, right? Cool. So I went to FITM, learned what I needed to do, but again, I am such a dig down, dig deep, go for the hard stuff. You know, when you come out of high school, you go to college, you do all the ratings of the teachers, and I remember the 19-year-olds was like, oh, I'm never taking that teacher. I heard he was hard, and he used to teach Marc Jacobs, and I heard she's hard. She used to be the sketch person for Christian Dior, right? They wouldn't take it. I looked on there and said, I'm taking every single one of those. Every mean teacher, I want to be in there. I need to be beat up because I'm 36. That's what I'm taking. And again, because they were hard on me, is the reason why I became such a highly sought after designer, even within my first 2 years there. So, for example, my sketch teacher, she just passed away, but she was a sketcher in Paris with Dior, and she didn't judge me against the kids that were 19. She took where I was at. I thought I was a pretty good sketcher, but she beat me up on my sketch because she wanted me to be good. Same thing with Mr. Swiatek, who was one of Marc Jacobs' teacher, where students were intimidated by him. They would go out to class crying because he would do stuff, and I'm just like, give me all of that. But I contribute all of that to 2 years after sewing a pillow. They brought me back for a full scholarship to present my full collection to the world. So I had to come back for another 2 years. But that same collection in 2013, again, 2 years, I just touched the sewing machine. I had a billboard in Times Square with Chris Brown, with a shirt, and he had done a campaign with Sprayground campaign, and it said Chris Brown wears Octavius Terry jersey and Philip Lim pants, and they had my name tied with Philip Lim, who's an amazing designer. I was like, oh my gosh, stuff is happening. Cut to I get this image sent to me while I'm in college that I had done this jacket for Queen Latifah on a blog, and it's kind of one of those things. One of my worst days at school, I was coming back. I was so tired. I was like, am I supposed to be doing this? And then my friends started sending me. As soon as put that out in the universe, my friends was like, have you seen Boss Up? That's your jacket, right? So I look on Boss Up, and it's Queen Latifah. She has my name. She says, and it says Queen Latifah wearing this jacket of Octavius Marshall.
So you didn't even know that was going to come out? Oh, no. Man.
So I was like, okay, it's a sign. I'm going to keep going, right?
I knew I was made for this.
Yeah. So then I do my collection, and then after that, Ariana Grande, when her album became #1 for the first time on Good Morning America, all the dancers were wearing things that I had made for them. Mary J. Blige chose a tuxedo off of that same collection, and was on tour with Sam Smith, and sent me this T-shirt and said, thank you, I need more. Demi Lovato, and then I was on the Tony Braxton show during their tour because she saw my school show. And again, I have I have a little imposter syndrome because I'm like, gosh, I went from that to now I'm this guy who's doing all these things, and then. There's a longer story in there, but just say that it's kind of what got me. It's actually what got me to Atlanta. But in between that time, I don't know if you know this, but I'm almost an EGOT designer.
I don't even know what that is.
So,
What's an EGOT
so
designer?
you know, EGOT is you have a Grammy, Oscar, Tony, and
Oh, right.
and an Emmy, Oscar, Tony, and a Grammy.
Uh-huh.
So, 2017, Terrell McCraney for Moonlight. He was a writer who won an Oscar for Moonlight. That was a white tuxedo I made for him for that night, and he won an Oscar in that. And Jimmy Kimmel called it the best tuxedo of the night.
That's awesome.
Karamo for Queer Eye, they got their first Emmy. And I made a cape and it went over a suit. And he has a picture in it with him winning the Emmy and the cape and everything like that. And then I know we're going to get into that a little bit later, but little fun fact about me, I had got married on the Grammys and wore a white tuxedo there, but that performance that I wore the tuxedo in, Macklemore won a Grammy for Same Love in that. So I just need somebody who's on Broadway. I need a Tony. Give me a Tony, and I would be an EGOT fashion designer.
That's so cool. All right, so anyone that listens to this, if you know someone that is a Tony nominee, we gotta
let's
connect
go.
with
Let's go.
Octavius.
Get me.
Complete the EGOT.
Yeah.
No, that's so funny. It's funny because like everyone listening to this is gonna get to hear all your story and everything, but I just can't stress how funny it is to me that like I knew you for a little bit, but this stuff slowly came out. Like we'd be, in a meeting talking about real estate, and you're like, well, that time that I got married on the Grammys. Like, wait, what?
I know.
Full of surprises.
Because sometimes I forget, right? But then I've been urged to like some of my mentors. Sometimes that's the best thing. Like when you forget everything that you've done. I mean, because I think humility is the best thing, right? I forget some of the things I do until somebody brings it up or until I see something that I run across like, oh my gosh, I remember when I did that. But people see it as last year I got an award in DC for a Trailblazer Award. So here I am, I'm just getting into real estate. I'm like, Trailblazer for what? What have I done? So I go, and the person that wrote the speech went down the whole thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot I did that. Oh yeah, I was. Oh, I did do that. And I was so embarrassed because there's so much more I want to do, and there's so many other things I'm digging down deep in. But then I haven't had the chance to kind of sit back and reflect on like when we talk about even track, like being a member of two of those United States teams, and also like I'm in the Sports Hall of Fame at Georgia Tech. I just went back to see that. But then when I go and see that I'm humbled by those experiences because I start to think about like, gosh, I remember how I thought it was so tough when I was doing that, and now I don't even remember it until I see my picture up there or something like that. So I think that'll always be a part of me. Yeah.
That's another amazing trait that I think is so valuable is like if you can push through the hard moments and zoom out and just be like, what am I going to think about this 30 years from now? Like my fiance who's behind the camera, she's involved in our real estate business, especially, our portfolio. And she's done a lot of work working on the properties when we renovate them and go to rent them out and all that. And we'll have moments where we're like on the ground crying and like, what are we doing? Why did we think that we were ready for this? But we push through, we get it rented out, we're building wealth, we're growing a real estate portfolio, and looking back, we laugh, right? And we're like, oh yeah, that was so funny that time we were on the ground crying. Yeah. But I think for a lot of people, it can be really hard. You get caught up in the moment, and that is, again, when people quit or they don't finish. And I think your story and some of the things you're talking about is so valuable for people to hear, even as a reminder of just pushing through until you get to that goal or that finish line.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of my biggest fears, I think that what keeps me up at do these projects. Like I have a big wedding I'm doing in Dominican Republic next week, but I have my saboteur that sinks in too and says, gosh, are you really going to be able to finish all of this? But then I know from my experiences, I have no other choice. I'll never give up. But then I'm also leaning into the fact that what is it that I have not learned that can make this process quicker that I can transfer elsewhere? That's what I dig into. That's what I mean by I want to write that book. So when people feel that there's a message in there, you don't feel like you can finish it, but there's something in there that can, that you just haven't thought about. Maybe you just need to step away from it. But you think like, gosh, if I would have done this a long time ago, it would have been so much faster, so much cleaner, so much easier. but that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those times when that's like the key to the when I talk about learning how to finish. You're looking for the thing that stops you in your tracks to know that there is a reason that it's there because that's what's going to get you to the finish line. And sometimes not only get you to the finish line, but get you to the finish line faster than what you could have thought about.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that's also why people need to like push themselves to be in uncomfortable situations like you were also talking about, because you're never gonna, that's like, someone saying, oh, I'll start going to the gym once I'm buff and in good shape. It's like, no, you get that way by pushing yourself into uncomfortable situations, trusting that you're going to figure it out along the way, and that coming out of that, you'll have now gained skills that make you even stronger going forward.
Absolutely. Because even in that, like you're starting, then don't concentrate on like the weight loss or the muscle build. Like concentrate on something else in there to get you past that because that's going to come, but it's going to come with patience and time, right? But when you get out of there, like, oh, I feel like going to the gym, but like start thinking about it as when I go to the gym, I'll be able to think. I can turn my phone off. I don't have to do an email or anything like that. I can be. The gym is going to allow me to be strictly only focused on me for a second. Once you kick into that, 3 months have passed, 6 months have passed. You're like, I didn't even think I was going to be looking like this, but look at the byproduct of. And we talk about this all the time. I think it's just having that's the byproduct of mindset. So it's all mindset. It really is. Like refocus. Don't focus on like because some people won't finish like that first day, second day in the gym. Give them 3 days, like right at New Year's, and by January 3rd, they're like, I'm out of here, because they don't see the results. Right? Don't look for that. Look for June. But in the meantime, do the activities, finish the activities. That's going to come, but use that time to do something else, like work on the mental, start using that to think about your day or your next week or what are you going to eat afterwards, stuff like that. It'll come.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, so I want to transition to real estate and dive a little bit more into that. I will say the real quick plug, if you're curious about Octavius's fashion stuff, go to his Instagram. There are some really fun videos and pictures and celebrities and like all the work that you've done. It's really cool. It's impressive. It's impressive.
Thank you.
But yeah, let's talk real estate. So what sparked your interest to say, I want to get my real estate license. I want to be a realtor. What sparked that? What's the vision? What's the goal?
This is good. Well, like I said, I bowed out of the financial industry in 2009 during the market crash. And that's when I was like, I just want to flex my creative muscle, and that's what it's going to be. And got a lot of success at doing that. Actually, it's what brought me back to Atlanta because I was actually the fashion program chair, which is the that runs the fashion programs for the entire country for the Art Institute of Atlanta. But I was going to be sitting, my office was sat in here in Sandy Springs. And so I came to that and did that for 3 years to kind of watch students under me who were marginalized, who didn't have anybody looking at them, and me being competitive and saying, hey, because it was Art Institute, then there's SCAD. Everybody knows what SCAD is, right? So I was like, my goal is, again, I'm always for the underdog. I'm always for, if somebody says I can't do it, I want to do it. So I spent 3 of my years giving back to students in a way that I got these students on the cover of a fashion magazine. We did a very huge fashion show right before the pandemic that had all of my celebrity friends sit front row and to cheer them on, and they got to use all their skills and present. And like one of my students was 65 years old, and she just went back to design school so she could get a degree. She had the talent, but she cried because she said in her lifetime she never would have thought that she would be having clothes on a fashion runway. And so that was what I wanted to do. And so once I felt like that was done in the right way, I kind of bowed out of it and I said I wanted to run my brand. But at the same time, I said I have so much influence because of everything that I've done. I've had so many connections through like the celebrity portfolio that I have been building with just like my like doing these celebrity weddings. Like I did Mark Ballas's wedding from Dancing with the Stars, Tatiana Ali from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the Judge Mathis family, I did their wedding, and a lot of, just so many more. And Derek Fisher from the Lakers, I did his wedding. But I had this Rolodex of influence and people who trusted me on some of the most important days of their lives. So I was able to call them if I needed to, and they would always pick up my phone because I was attached to one of, the biggest days of their lives, right? So I said, we have this mass exodus of people coming from California who are friends of mine who are actors, and I was born and raised here in Atlanta, and I said, well, maybe it's time for me to, get back into the financial industry, but let's go the real estate route. And because I have a background in kind of like lending and that kind of thing, and then I've run my business as an entrepreneur. I just call myself a double entrepreneur. But even in that, there was there's pushback on like, okay, can Octavius cross blend both of his brands from the fashion design and the real estate and make it cohesive and make it organic. And so I was able to do that and successfully, and I'm seeing the benefits of that because like now my tagline is from the fashion cutting table to the closing table.
I love that.
And I knew that it was a ring to it because everybody knew me as a fashion designer because of my gray hair. And I would be in airports and they're like, oh, Octavius, who followed me in fashion, they're like, from the cutting table to the closing table. And I would laugh. I'm like, oh, people are catching on. That's good. So I didn't even know it was going to catch on like that. But I needed to find a way that I could do both where my influence is very much like a reality show. So what I've learned that people kind of love about what I do is that, even at the age of 50, I've always been able to not only reinvent myself and continue to bring everything together. Like I said, I consider myself a hummingbird. Like I've always kind of cross-pollinated all these different things. Now I'm able to funnel everything down. And one of the most important things that when I jumped back into real estate was I can do this not only for the people that I know and I have the influence from that are from all over the country, and because I know Atlanta, I know all the boroughs, and I was born and raised here, but also helping people create generational wealth, like a lot of are marginalized, my cousins and that kind of thing, that if they had someone that they could refer to do that. So I have like two angles with that. Just because when I turned 50, I think the clock turned on me as well. And I said, well, what am I doing for myself? Because that was a scary moment. I'm like, yeah, I've done so much. I've done a lot of things, but even myself personally, I took a step back in creating my own generational wealth as well. So I said, well, this is a chance to do that too. And just and have fun with it. And it's been great because, most of my deals have come from clients that are cross breeding with me with these other things that I'm doing. I was just telling you, like, my first $1 million listing comes from me doing a 20-year anniversary tuxedos for this particular client, and that has happened. And because now they're like, we trust you in everything, so you're just part of the family, and that's what I like, and that's been proof of concept to me. Because even myself, I said, another thing that I've not allowed anybody else to do is put their own insecurities on me, because that builds anxiety for me. But I know that I have to take a step back and just say, whatever it's going to be, I'm just going to go, like Oprah says, I've got everything I need in my toolbox, so I'm going to make it work no matter what. And if I don't make it work the way I thought, then I'm going to create new math. I'm going to learn from it. So that's kind of where I'm at. And real estate has been great because I get to do kind of both. I think the first thing is that I had to really get through the logistics of all the what are the contracts and all those things. But just the trust that I've already built with people and the influence that I've been able to create a situation where I hope business continues to be that way, and those referrals come from both sides. Because I would say that my referral business I'm trying to slow it down because I'm building a team on that side, but I get calls. I I would say I'm like the Olivia Pope for weddings, and I usually get the calls from the wives to be
Hmm.
because they spent so much on the dress, and it's like the Olivia Pope. They're like, you need to call Octavius. I know you don't know him, but I spent too much on this dress, and you are not going to Men's Warehouse and mess up my dress. So that I've been, and I'm like, well, I know that the referrals will come on the real estate side like that too. So like most of my everything I do has been referral based. I've never had a PR person. Even the Derek Fisher, like all of this stuff has come from my reputation of going hard and completing and a perfectionist, and I'm will continue doing that.
That's so good. There's so many amazing things I could say about that. One that it reminds me of is, at Sotheby's, we preach the ninja philosophy of selling. And the basic idea behind a ninja is that there's someone who is an expert and a master of their craft. And they do an amazing job for people, especially being in the service industry. But there's a lot of humility around it. They're not someone with a huge ego. They just deliver the highest possible level of service and results, knowing that, one, that's how things should be done. Yeah. What a great world to live in if everyone embodied that philosophy. And two, that's how referrals will come and you really build a name for yourself. I think something that's really unique about you that I relate to a lot is that you will not be pigeonholed. You will not be put in one simple box. And I just feel like there's so much about modern day society, and it's kind of capitalism in some ways, that there's pressure to do that, to be put in a box, you need to go build a career and you need to follow this path and you need to work your way up the corporate ladder and just stay dedicated to this one little thing. And when I was doing my research, I was digging through your social media and I found a phrase that I want to talk about. Okay. And that phrase that you've said, I saw you say it multiple times, is that you're a jack of all trades and a master of all.
Yes.
Where did that come from? What does that mean?
Well, it's exactly what you talked about. People putting their own insecurities on me and what I could do. And I hate to keep quoting Will Smith, but he has so many little nuggets in there. And one of the things that he said, you have to believe that you are the first time that you have ever happened. Right? Mm-hmm. So whatever you do is going to be the benchmark. Right? So for me, I enjoy, and what people don't understand, like, I love real estate, I love fashion, but too much of anything I get bored with, or I don't want to get burnt out, right? So it gives me the opportunity to kind of bounce back and forth. And then what joy it is to have two things that really cross-pollinate and work really, really well, right? I enjoy the creative aspect, and I don't ever think I can get rid of being a creative. Real estate is great. A lot of it is relationship building and transactional, but I have to feed my creative soul too, and how great that is in doing that. And then even with both of those, I find time to enjoy just other things, just keep doing them. But for now, these right now the two things that are happening now. But like I told you before, I'm like, if I get interested in flying a plane, who knows, I'll leave fashion design to my students somewhere, or some of the apprentices are coming up, and I'll start flying planes and doing real estate. But like I always say never, and then I know people like, oh my gosh, she's doing something else. Like my best friend, she's in LA now. But ever since, like, she's the best friend. She's my best friend, but she's the worst at, like, oh, there you go again. You're doing something else. Oh, gosh. Here we go again. But I always send it to her so I can get a laugh, because I know she's gonna be like, oh, gosh, here you go again, But she loves bragging about it. But I think it's fun. I think it's just, I think it keeps me alive. And my mom would say the same thing. Like, I remember leaving fashion design school, and I was working at this place called Prana as a technical designer. So it's one job. You go in there, you sit and you do it. And I was like, the money was great, and I was like, I can do this, right? But we also had to take this personality test, and I still have that page of that personality test, because I actually got let go from the job, right? Because of the personality test. And it was weird, because what the personality test said, that I had an entrepreneurial mind, and that minuscule task would bore me pretty soon, But at the time, I was like, I can do this. But I know there were times I was like, oh gosh, do I have to do this again? I need to do something else. But I was mad at the personality test for saying that. But when I read it, I'm like, this was early on in my career. I'm like, that is me. Like, how did they get that from me saying, what color do you like and all these things? And I thought that was really, really interesting. And so it's back to like what you said. It's hard for me to be placed in anybody's box. And I oftentimes go for the challenge because of trying to have that experience, and not only having the experience, but overachieving in it, making sure like I knock it out the park before I try to decide to do something else. Like I never quit in the middle and say, I'll get back to it. You'll never see that on my social media, how I got back to something. No, I'll do it, kill it. I want my name like in the Hall of Fame at Georgia Tech, kill it. I'm in the Hall of Fame at the fashion at FIDM, and that's why I have my sights set on Atlanta Fine Home Sotheby's. And that top spot's up there too, my picture. So that's what's next for me.
I love that. So what, is there anything like specific, and this will be the milestone that says, okay, now he's in the Hall of Fame of real estate? Do you have a dream of starting a team or doing a certain amount of sales?
I don't now. Like I was saying with the like with the hurdles, like I think that real estate and what I want to do at Sotheby's, I think I'm at the starting blocks. And so, my first year I had, those transactions. So I'm out of the curve. So I'm heading down the straightaway this year because everything is kind of on autopilot. But I just know that at the end of this race is one of the circles, so whatever that is. So right now I'm like, so there's 10 hurdles. I feel like I'm just getting off of hurdle 2 in my second year right now. Like just getting my feet ready, like going down that back stretch is kind of where it's so funny. I'm mentally watching myself do this right now, and it's at Georgia Tech, believe it or not. Like it's the same track that I do this. Yeah. I still have the same thing. When I think of a calendar year, I know this sounds funny, but my first vision of a calendar year was in kindergarten. And it was these donkeys. So it was a donkey that started January here, February, March, April. So I look at a calendar like that and donkeys in my brain. Like, it's December. Oh, it's the donkey down here in the corner. I know it's weird.
Was this an actual calendar that you saw that had donkeys?
Yes.
Okay, and just stuck with you?
Well, that's I'm a visual person. Not only was it donkeys, but the position of a year is not. Not like this. Not like this. The position of a year is not like how everybody else thinks. I know it sounds weird, but January is a donkey up here, and it goes like this. And June and July are the middle donkeys in the bottom. And then it goes all the way up to December, the donkeys up here. And then we jump back over. So that's what I envision when I think of a year. So I know. Funny. This is the first. This is a podcast first.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. The donkey calendar year. But the same thing. Like when I think of everything that I'm doing, fashion design, and where I want to be at that, even where I'm at now, I see this as a race, and I see that there's 10 barriers. The first part was just getting in the blocks, just getting in, figuring out the systems and that kind of thing, going over the first hurdle, which was like the first listing transaction, the first selling transaction, got over that. So now my pace is picked up. Now I'm heading down the backside now. Not at the finish line because there's still a lot of other transactions I have to get over and learning, but hopefully by the time I get to the end, I will be coasting so much that that will start to happen. When I look in the morning, I look at that placement of that, the chart with everybody, like Betsy Akers and everybody, right? Mm-hmm. I have 2 of those now, and they're on my desk, and so that's probably how I will visualize being at Sotheby's, just like wanting to be on the cover of my own insert for my folder for that year.
That's amazing. I remember I started at Keller Williams, and they have a newsletter every month that they print out, and they'll put a picture of everyone that capped, right? Yeah. So if you hit your commission cap, right. Yeah. Like that's probably the top 20% of agents over there. And so in my first year when I capped, I was like really, really proud of that. It was kind of that first hurdle for me. And I actually framed it, and like my friend Matt, who we started around the same time, he capped the same month. So we were like next to each other. But yeah, Larissa actually framed that for me. And so I still have that. But yeah, Sotheby's is up next. I got to get on there with you.
Right. Yeah. That'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all so good. I love everything about your story. I think there are so many things that people can learn from, and a lot of it is even subtle. I think you have to really pull it out. But I think about focus. I think about delayed gratification. I think about how you visualize yourself succeeding. You're dedicated. You're very driven. You're very driven. When you decide that you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And you don't really quit when the going gets tough. And I'm sure so many people can pull a lot out of this episode. And I also love that you share just all your different passions. You're not afraid to just be you. And if it doesn't fit in a perfect box of how society wants to categorize people, whether that's a personality test or having a career define who you are, you just don't allow that. And I love that. Is literally inspiring to me because I have different passions too. But, I feel like, I don't know, sometimes there's this pressure to maintain a certain persona, or I'm the real estate guy now. You got to think of me as real estate. Right. I think we can all kind of relate to that. So super, super good. I want to go ahead and start wrapping up and move to our final 4. So these are our 4 questions that we ask everyone that comes on the podcast. Right. And I'm sure you're going to have some great answers here. So number 1 question. Is
it rapid fire or just?
Either way, okay. Whatever feels good to you.
Right.
So yeah, number 1 question is, what is your morning routine?
Ooh, it's the ninja way. So believe it or not, my alarm clock goes off at 4:50.
Wow.
I'm in the gym between 5 and 5:15 every morning, and then I get home so I could have just a small breakfast and watch the Good Morning America, like the first 30 minutes. So at 7:30 is when I literally, ever since I took Ninja last year, I do my 3 affirmations. I do my 50 things like I enjoy making this amount. I write that down, and it feels good. Now I've gotten to the point where now it's supposed to write it down 25 times. The muscle memory on that, that's why I know that visualization works. My hand will automatically stop at 25, and then I'll count because I'm like, this has to be wrong. And sometimes it'll be 26 or a little bit more, but it's always 25, 26 in the same book. And then I write my 3 gratitudes at the top of that. And then I have like this Jana Van Zant book called Acts of Faith that I got as a graduation present from high school for one of my relatives. And I have read that every day, every year, because it has coffee stains on it now and everything like that. So it's 30 years old. But it's just so funny that I've read it over and over again, but it always feels like something because I'm in a different part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember reading it last year because wherever I'm reading it, I'm in a different space in my life. I'm like, gosh, it feels like this book has been like going on forever, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the fun thing. So that's from 7:30 to 9. 9 o'clock, I get my first bulldog up. We walk. If I don't call my mom by 9:05, she's calling me. So we have a morning call right at 9 o'clock. She's like, I'm walking the dog. Hey, how's Gucci? She loves him. What do you have to do today? So I have to run down my whole schedule with her, get it approved, and then right when I get him back in the house, then I'm in my database. I'm writing down like my 2 cards and reaching out and doing all those things.
Do you ever get thrown off with your routine? Because I'm pretty good about my morning routine, but like if I travel, it'll throw me off for at least a week.
Yeah. Sometimes it does. Like I will say this: if I got to do something and I miss that morning, get up and go to the gym, I just won't do it. Because if I try to do it at 12:01, I don't visually see myself in there at that time. Because at 1 o'clock. My brain is on like, what if I get a call now? What if I get it gives me more anxiety because like I have a purpose that I do not have to look at anything, talk to any human being before 7:30. But yeah, I get thrown off, and it does, and it's so funny. Like it makes me feel a little off when I do that because even like writing the affirmations, I feel like I'm doing something and I don't know the intrinsic value of it sometimes, but I know that just from my visualization that what I'm putting down there and I'm looking at it, I know it's working. And so I always say all the success that I'm having right now, I start to think that's where that's coming from. Like that's literally where that's coming from, whether I see it or not, like how I'm landing the deals. And because a lot of my friends are like, how are you doing it like this so fast? Like, that's what I always do. But it's just from like my transferable skills and just kind of something is just kicking in.
It's so true. I can totally relate to that. I would equate it to eating food. Like in the moment, whether you're eating like fried chicken or a salad, you might not feel any different. But then 3 hours later, whether you have any energy or not, you can trace it back.
Yeah.
And it's the same for me with the morning routine. Like when it's on and I'm like, oh, I had a good day. What a coincidence. And when it's off, it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. Number 2 question is, what is your biggest goal for this year?
My biggest goal for this year, top producer, of course. Yes.
Love it. We're going to see
Yes.
it. We're going to put a picture up with the circle on there.
Yes.
Number 3, what is your favorite thing to do in Atlanta?
Wow. Okay, my favorite thing to do in Atlanta. I like to, so the old Olympic training track is near my house. So I'm still out there 2 times a week, like on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll go out there today. That's kind of my favorite thing too. Like I get it, especially in the spring.
I love that. Number 4 is a toss-up. Where can people find out more about you or get in touch with you?
Octavius Terry on everything. At Octavius Terry. Social media. You can find my website. I have a website link at the top of my social media that actually goes to some of the apparel business, and they actually have live links to the articles that were written when did Derek Fisher's wedding. It was featured in Brides magazine. You can go and see the actual video of Jimmy Kimmel talking about best tuxedo of the night, things like that. So it's interactive. So yeah, at Octavius Terry everywhere. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. You've got a couple Instagram followers.
Yeah.
Are your DMs flooded? If someone reaches out to you, you're going to be able to find it?
Yeah, I find them.
Okay.
Yeah. I find a lot because I still get a lot. I'm still considered like a influencer, so I do a lot of cool things. But like that's the other thing about it. Where I'm at now, I get to talk about real estate. Like interesting enough, was it yesterday? Today's Thursday. Tuesday. I was an influencer for the new movie coming out. Who was it? Jane Fonda and those guys. So they had me and my fiance. We had to do this social media thing, but we went to Barone, where it's in West Midtown, and we learned how to make pasta from scratch with a lot of other influencers, and we had to have our phone and that kind of thing. And so we did that, and that's always cool because that's fun too because it gets to break it up, and then I get to still talk about real estate and do influencer thing like go to the free movies, and so. I do a lot of those things, and then like product placement because again, people are so interested in the fact that I'm such a hummingbird, and at 50, I'm still trying to stay in shape. I'm reinvented myself so many times. That's really the influence. Like I'm one of those people. Like I know if I can do it, anybody can do it, and I think that's why people really believe in the real estate. And I've had so many referrals. They're like, wow, like I've seen this transition happen, so I know I can figure something out if Octavius can do it because he's about to be 51. I can do it. I get those kind of DMs, or even when people see me in person, they're like, wow, like you inspired me to do this. I've inspired a lot of creative people, even in LA, to get back into, not get back, but to go into real estate. So I've seen some of those people like, you inspired me to do this, and I knew it was a change, and now I'm so glad I did it, and thanks to you for. I'm like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, such a feel-good moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, your story is really inspiring. Your energy is just so bright and positive, and I think you should write the book and post more and all of that, because I know even I'm like blessed that I get to be around you. You and I meet with a couple other people every other week or so, and like that's a powerful group. There's some awesome people there, and I always real
estate therapy. We have real estate therapy, right?
Yeah, and we walk out of there just like on cloud 9, ready to conquer the world.
Yes.
So
yes,
I'm sure anyone that listened to this will also get a lot out of it for sure.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. We're going to wrap it up there. That is it for today's episode. Thank you to everyone who made it this far. I really am so grateful for anyone that might be listening to this out there because, we're still just getting this thing started. But I'm going to be like Octavius, and we're just going to keep going until it succeeds and blows up. Your story is amazing. Thank you again for sharing it. If you guys enjoyed this episode, feel free to reach out, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're just going to have more and more amazing stories just like this to share, and I'm sure we'll have Octavius back at some point. So much more that we could talk about.
I would be
Yes, definitely. And if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in Atlanta real estate, you can get in touch with either of us. He's Octavius Terry. I'm on Instagram at RealMikeLacey. And yeah, that's it for this week. Have an amazing week.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.